Oh.
Give it a sec. Should be working.
Yep, you'll start bringing them into this chat.
Hello,
right?
and this is the after show with me, SirStrife, and this is our resident particle physicist, Chris, and what are you, Sam?
I am Sam. It's Raatz on YouTube, and a graduate student in biology with a focus in bioinformatics and molecular genetics.
Okay.
Oh, awesome.
Okay, so pretty much this will be part of the show where viewers can call in, comment on the show, give reviews, or we could talk about a topic or stuff, and it could go on for possibly at most 11 Eastern, at most.
Mm-hmm.
So this will be a
I have to leave it. I have to leave at probably about 10:15.
Yeah,
so I will be. I have some stuff I got to take care of. A meeting specifically.
One sec. I gotta
start adding people. Start adding people.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing.
I know. I'm
I'll add.
making sure that I'm on the same page. I actually cannot see my Skype right now, so.
You're on a phone, aren't you?
No, I'm actually. My roommate's actually playing a game while I'm talking to you guys, so.
On the phone, right?
No, I'm actually on the computer talking while he's playing the game.
Oh crap! Raatz is calling.
Well, you can bring him in in a few. I mean,
well, let's pick a topic to focus on. I don't know.
You want? How about we talk about Raatz's thing, because Raatz we all have.
Well, I mean, Raatz's problem is that Raatz goes in too many different directions, tries to confuse everybody, and the thing is, if you actually listen to one of his little theories and actually listen to it, you can kind of understand it. He doesn't have a grasp on physics. He doesn't have a grasp on calculus. He reads one or two lines from a theorem, and he thinks that he understands it, and he doesn't. And he's gifted at sitting there talking for hours on the same thing and never saying anything, and it's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't strike me as someone who's particularly scientifically literate. I think he knows a lot of terms.
Yeah,
that's
about it.
It didn't really sound like it was, because I don't know.
He was reading off of other people's papers, and you could tell that's what he was doing. You could tell by the rhythmic of his talking when he's reading off of other people's papers. His rhythm changes, and you can tell. And he's sitting there struggling, trying to make sure he doesn't screw up the words, and it's at a certain beat when he's reading. And he doesn't really grasp what he's actually reading, you can tell. And to me, that's kind of defeats the purpose of science. Either you understand it or you don't. But if you don't understand it, you don't make assumptions on something you don't understand.
Yeah, it doesn't really...
You keep trying to understand it. He postulated a theory that we live in a VR universe. Although he doesn't understand that that's not a theory, that's a hypothesis that cannot be tested.
Exactly. I was going to say...
So it's a waste of time to talk about something that can't be tested. It's not scientific.
Oh, crap. You guys want me to try Jason Burns?
Yeah, fine. Yeah,
sure.
Bring him in.
I mean, I don't know. In terms, the thing that always amazes me, and maybe this is just me because I've taken psychology.
Me too.
I've taken...
Wait, guys, stop, because he had trouble on the show earlier. Let's see if this works. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
Hello?
Maybe he's having issues. Let's keep the conversation going, though. That air's not good.
Well,
he's talking.
Okay, go ahead, Jason.
But I think it's a really important thing to say. I just want to read a Bible verse. It says, I tell you the truth, Mark 10, verse 15, I tell you the truth, anyone who will not receive the kingdom of heaven like a little child will never enter it. And
what relevance does that have to do?
If you don't come...
And the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy says that I should always bring a towel.
And Lord of the Rings says, one ring to rule them all.
If you don't see and see...
And Hitchens says, I only need 10 minutes to disprove God. Oh, 15 minutes.
You'll never find God. You see, God isn't just an abstract principle. God is a person. right?
Well, no, he isn't, because if he is a person, he'd be living in our universe. We don't see that.
Particular.
If he's a person, he's not God, is he?
Wait. Is this actually Jason, or is this just a pre-recording?
Your friend might say, well, you know, I can't because...
Strife, I think this is a pre-recording.
Kick him.
That was weird.
Yeah, that's weird.
It did sound like a pre-recording message, didn't it? Sound like one of his... I mean, he has so many YouTube videos.
Well,
Yeah.
the thing that I noticed was he tried to start every single conversation by saying the exact same thing, and not expressing any frustration in his voice.
Tom, you have anything to comment on this?
Nah, I just got in. Sorry, so I kind of missed
Did
it a
you
little
hear
bit.
that, though?
Well, a little bit, but I don't know what to make of that.
My eyes glaze over when I listen to Bible verses because I have no reason to take them seriously.
1 sec.
I know that sounds very...
He actually read a verse. What did he read? I missed it.
He read
right,
something
yeah.
from Matters. I don't know. Something about
Matthew.
finding God. Hey, Greg.
Yeah. It's all woo-woo.
Not to make...
Sorry, I had to mute something.
Not
Go
to
on.
be flippant, but my eyes just glaze over. I just don't... I mean, I don't have time to listen to that crap, to be completely honest.
I mean, what are the Bible verse reason? I mean, what's the point? Are they going to read us a verse and we're all supposed to say, "Oh, that's the one"? You know, why didn't I read that before? No, I'm saved.
I've read the Bible. It doesn't impress me. I've read the Bible several times, and I'm sorry, I saw nothing profound in it. I saw a lot of violence, a lot of sex, a lot of entertainment values crap, and nothing real significant in it. I think I got more significance out of reading J.R. Tolkien's books.
Yeah,
And those were good books, you have to admit.
Whose mic is going crazy?
Red line.
No, that's Prag.
Prag.
Pragmatic. Mute your mic.
Holy crap. Yeah, actually, I just want to come in here real quick to say that Fair Joke that's pretending to be him, I think that actually is a recording because I saw a debate, if we can call it that, between Jason Burns and some other dude. That's not his icon, so yeah, that was a pre-recording, so yeah.
We got trolled. Oh my god, that means we're actually a show.
We're actually a show. Fuck yeah!
Yeah, you have to get
touching
the
on
first-
issues
you have
that
to get
actually
trolled.
make them look foolish.
What?
And that's the problem.
No, but that
Yeah.
shows how good the show is. If you get trolled, that means you're good.
That means we're good, so peace out, everyone.
It's an
All right.
invitation.
See you, Redline.
But yeah, so
What were we talking about?
Or
Oh, we
whoever
were
left.
talking
we're
about
talking about rats.
substance mind
Wait.
dualism. I guess this is
Yeah.
in general. I just feel like these people have never taken a biology course because it just completely...
No, but you do recall, Sam. Were you watching the show earlier?
Yeah.
He did say that. I mean, Tom, you were there, right?
Yeah.
Didn't he agree when I say the mind is matter?
Yes, he did.
He did.
And then now, isn't he then just flipping that completely, saying he doesn't when he said that a mind is a foundational thing?
Yeah,
I can't-
His whole argument was just a complete cluster of spin fuck. I mean, it was just, what the fuck is he saying? I mean, I couldn't. To anybody who was even just trying to follow along, it was a wonderful circular bunch of gibberish.
Well, yeah, I mean, I studied physics. I'm very versed in it. And he cites papers all the time. And when you actually go read the papers that he cites, it actually isn't talking about what he actually thinks it's talking about, which is, I think, is hilarious. And then whenever you try to argue with him about it, he gets really defensive and then just completely goes in a different direction in which you're telling him is wrong with the paper. It's hilarious. And he tries to make you look like the idiot. He's a troll.
Well, I
Well, they
mean,
always use the big words and big long phrases that sound good. It's like listening to Lord Monkton talk about climate change, because all it is just gibberish and all this fancy sounding stuff, and it has nothing behind it, no substance whatsoever.
I almost met Monkton.
you mean
I was in
almost-
England this summer, and I was studying for a philosophy exam with my friend, and we were. This was at Cambridge at the Student Union, where we had all our classes, and this guy with bug eyes walks in. I'm like, oh my god, it's Lord Monkton. And he's talking about like how he can use the room to sway people, and I was just like, I know that guy. Like, he doesn't believe in climate change. I didn't want to confront him, but it was the most surreal thing that's ever happened to me.
That guy is the classic of woo-woo gibberish. I mean, that guy can just rattle off cherry-picked bullshit like no other.
I think Nephilim Free beats him.
Well, that's true.
I don't know. Johanan gives everybody a run for their money, I think.
No. P.P. Simmons.
That's true. It's hard. Any maybe it's just me, but is it odd that all the, not to be flippant, but that almost every apologist that I've ever met has to be such a dishonest piece of shit when it comes to their sources.
Yeah.
Hey.
Well, what I actually don't like is, like earlier in the show, they were talking about how they had this experience, and you sit there and tell them that it's emotional, and they sit there and argue with it that it isn't. And it's like they don't even understand how we learn. And
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, Packard, how are you doing, man?
The after show,
Not too
Packard.
bad.
You're on the line. Go show after show.
Oh, hey. Oh, you had the show already?
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is the after show.
Oh, all right.
So plug your channel real quick, Packard.
What's that?
Plug your show.
It's Packard Pokes at on VonLiveTV.com/Packard Pokes at. Next
God,
Friday.
I should get sediment. I should get a payment for every time you do that. Like, damn it, it's ad thing. Damn it.
But no, what I was saying before Packard came in is that it's like these people don't even understand how our learning experience is tied to our emotions, and that emotions actually reinforce what we're learning. And it kind of frustrates me whenever you start talking to them. I mean, you're a biologist. I'm sure that you kind of can talk a little bit more in detail about it.
Well, it's associative. I mean, the sensory organs can reinforce memories. That's why for studying, a good study tip is to say something out loud as you're learning it. Like, for example, like if I have an organic chemistry quiz and I say, well, the bromine attacks the carbon, in addition to drawing the mechanism of the reaction.
You learn to memorize it.
Yeah.
By saying it.
And another interesting thing, this is just interesting. If anyone, I forget the name of the Proust book, but I've never read it, but there's a scene where the guy remembers his mother. The main character remembers his mother because he passes by a bakery and he smells these cookies. I forget the name of the cookie, but this is before we knew this, but the smell area of the brain is right next to the memory area of the brain. And Proust noticed that like 100 years before the science was known, before an MRI was ever built. I think that's really cool.
I'm going to test something, guys, so if I'm echoing, let me know, or if you're hearing something horrible, let me know.
All right.
Is it okay?
Yeah, you're still fine. How you doing, man?
Okay. Cool. Sorry about that. No, I apologize for interrupting. I'm doing fine. I just wanted to check my settings. That's what I was doing for a while. Okay, cool. Continue on, guys.
You've interrupted the flow. We blame you.
Suck, Prag.
I do suck. Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, from what you were saying, like I like learning. I feel something like in my mind, even though I would guess you would say tingling sensation in my stomach, I guess, but it's actually my head doing it, right?
Yeah, I once had I was having a discussion with a
you got mail.
theist, and I don't have mail actually, but
sorry, that was mine. Sorry about that.
You got theist.
But he was saying like his proof for God was, this was really funny to me, was that like there's something special and like about the experience and human experience, and you can't capture that without a God. And I was like, motherfucker, like I get that same experience when I think about the universe. Like,
yeah, actually, while they were talking about that, I actually messaged Strife about that. I was like, man, I get that same sensation that he's talking about every time I figure out a math equation that I've been working like months on trying to figure
The
out.
wonder, the amazement, the awe, the inspiring, the beauty, the universe. That's
it. Carl Sagan said it best. You're right.
That's what he said?
Yeah.
I just pulled that out of my ass. I didn't think of that.
Yeah, Carl Sagan, man. Good.
Well, I
good
mean,
pull.
I just don't know why they would ever go with the personal experience argument, because, and here's the reason why.
Because you cannot disprove a personal experience.
Well, I know that, but
That's
It's
why
more of a
they
testimony
think
of
that they
belief.
win if you can't disprove it.
It's more.
Well,
of them
you
trying
kind
to
of can
avoid-
if you kind of can if you ask them for evidence. They have to provide evidence. If they don't provide evidence, then anything they say is for personal experience is completely out the window.
well, no,
I think
exactly.
when you can start breaking down that personal experience and equating it to actual science and explaining why they're having those emotions, like when he equated that Jesus was in the room, the dude was already excited because he was going to have sex. He was in there with the girl. She brought up Jesus, and the reason that it felt more real is because he was already excited.
A lot of the time, when
And she was
someone
shouting,
says,
Jesus, Jesus, while he was doing her. No,
Well, when
just kidding.
someone
Right.
says, I had... I'm
And
not
you're
sure-
not mocking the
Doesn't
guy,
a lot of
but that's
people
what you
go
equate
that-
it down
oh,
to.
Jesus, oh God, oh Jesus, oh
His
God.
emotions were already up in the air and already rampant, and then they started talking about something that can only be expressed with emotion. So yeah, he's going to think that God had some kind of motivation in that when
find a
he
guy
really
that can
didn't.
really- If you
Well,
can
a lot
find a
of
guy that can
times-
think clearly with an erection, you have found a very special person indeed.
And he wasn't thinking clearly. And then the thing is other emotions that he feels after the fact, he reaffirms that. And when he thinks about God, he goes back to that emotion that he was feeling when he was about to get laid. And he's trying to recapture that.
You
And,
want
and that's what it
something.
comes down to.
Maybe I'm
Am I
weird.
wrong?
Well, I want to have that emotion whenever I get laid too.
No, wait. To me,
Yeah, over and over as many times as we can.
but it
That's
sounds,
right.
but it sounds, in a sense, selfish.
It is.
Because because
Hmm.
you want something that you want because you like the feeling. Instead, you do it
Well-
because of the feeling.
Well, yeah, it's your ego. That's
Yeah.
essentially what this God is. And a lot of times when
and you're
someone
equating
says...
it down to I'm special because I had this experience. And you're not. Let's ask the biologist.
Wait, what makes a
Are
creature
we special?
special?
Are we any different than any other animal on this planet in a way that can be contributed to us being completely 100% unique to life on this planet?
No, not at all.
We're the only I think we're the only mammals that can do missionary positions.
Actually, no. There are certain apes that can as
Chimpanzees
well.
did it. I saw a chimpanzee do it.
He said an animal.
Oh. No, yeah, but
Chimpanzees are mammals.
Yeah.
fucking
Okay, I
physicists.
haven't seen them do missionary actually. So,
So you
maybe I'm wrong.
claim they are.
Yeah, no. Well, maybe I'm out there a little bit, but maybe they don't get it because I've done drugs in my life, so I know like that I can't like those feelings aren't real. Like it's just chemicals that
they're as
I
real as you make
ingested.
them.
Exactly, but I had a profound experience when I tried LSD, and that doesn't
Yeah,
take anything away from the experience, but I know that that's not, when I felt like I was one with the universe, that's not the same thing as a legitimate,
Scientific
Feeling.
theory.
The bonobo does the missionary position.
The what?
Bonobos bone all the time. No,
Exactly.
Wait, what does it?
The bonobo.
What the heck's a bonobo?
it's
a
a
type of-
chimpanzee.
It's a type of
It's a really
chimpanzee.
little
So
one,
so
isn't
I
it?
was
The
right,
small
it was
one?
a chimpanzee.
They've
Yeah.
also been They've also been seen engaging in oral sex as well.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Must be
Well,
slobbery
hey,
and
they're
kinky
getting
as hell.
somewhere.
See, and how I equate humans is I equate life and, just,
Who do you
I
think
equate
invented
everything
the
down to a
blowjob
particle
first?
level. And we're no different than a star. Just the way that our particles are formed is the only difference that we have.
Who do you think invented blowjobs first, chimpanzees or humans?
Where'd the hooker come from then? Do chimps have hookers?
No, but they
Yeah,
do have
they
the
do.
shell. No,
They
no,
do actually.
Yeah,
They
they
actually,
do.
women will actually sell themselves for meat in the chimpanzee.
Meat for meat.
And also, in I think it is like a bird. They trade shells or something for like sex.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, like
Yep.
that. So I guess maybe dinosaurs?
Wow.
Dinosaurs probably did the same thing. We don't have proof of it, but I mean, it all comes down to, I mean, we're all pretty much similar. I mean, everything on life has similarities. We just have a higher way of thinking. I don't even think we have a higher way of thinking. We just have
I think
a
it's a
higher way of
result of-
communicating.
I
mean,
think
really,
language
what
is
is-
the reason why we are so intelligent. I don't think, like, naively we're that much more intelligent than other apes.
Nope.
But my personal feeling is that language has allowed us to develop this incredible hyper-intelligence.
Agreed.
Seriously,
Along with
guys,
the
No,
opposable-
wait.
When is prostitution-
along with the opposable thumb.
No, I think this. We have the ability to pass on information from generation to generation, while other species,
Oh, no, they do.
No, that's incorrect as well, because they actually, that kind of information is also taught by other primates as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Ants do it too.
so tell me when
Ants
Planet of
do
the
it
Apes
also.
comes out, because it seems like that would happen.
Do what?
Tell me when. Oh wait, we already are apes. Never mind.
We've just evolved faster and further along than the rest of them.
You
The
blew
other
it up,
land
Strife.
mammals than the other land mammals.
Right.
You blew it up, Strife.
I was gonna say that.
all
You know,
your
tell me
fault.
when the chimpanzees take over the world.
Sweet. Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, but we are apes. So
We
it's
are
already
apes.
a Planet
This
of the
is
Apes.
Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
We're
it's
just,
like
we're just hairless apes.
Yep.
We're not
Well,
hairless.
some of you.
I hate it when
Well, some of us
creation-
are, yeah. Most of us are mostly hairless.
Well, I like to think I'm hung like an elephant.
Well, doesn't the human Homo sapien have the largest sex organ based on percentage,
No, no.
What was the
based on ratio?
Oh, wait! I gotta Google this. Let's see here. What
Wait,
what
what
mammal
was
has the
the
largest
question?
sex organ?
The largest,
think-
the largest mammal with the largest sex organ is the sperm whale.
Yep.
Well, that's the largest, but in ratio, I think that
That would
the human
also
had.
be in ratio to its body mass.
Hey, you know what mammal has the largest testicles in relative to its size?
Me?
No, is the right whale, and they can weigh 500 kilograms each.
Now, if we're talking
cow.
land,
That's a
big
huge
mammal.
land mammals, it's a different story. But if we're talking all mammals, then yeah, it would have to be the whale.
Yeah, but
But what
that's
is it
huge
on land?
balls. I mean, 500 kilograms. Like, isn't that how much is that? That's.
That's 1,000 pounds
That's a
of dick.
lot. That's 1,000 pounds. That's a
Or
lot
more.
of nut. Not to be crude.
You can make so much nut from that.
In your face.
Yeah, it's like that nut in your face.
Imagine the sploosh from it. It would be everywhere.
Teabagging.
What about the land
is
mammal?
on-
Now, if we could figure out how to harness the
Yeah,
power
it does bring a whole new meaning to
used behind his
teabagging.
ejaculation, we could probably make a lot of energy.
It's the power of ejaculation.
Yeah, we gotta be able to harness that power. I mean, 500 kilograms being pushed out like, oh wow.
No, that's how big. That's how heavy they are.
Oh, okay.
It's not how fast it is. It goes at supersonic speed. I don't know.
It comes out like a fire hose.
Squeeze in
It's in
water.
my eye!
No, it goes right through your eye. It's like a gunshot.
But
God.
Actually, one
We
ton.
changed topics.
yeah, that's what I was about to do, actually.
As fascinating as Welcome is.
But God apparently likes big nuts, so let's face it.
Well, here's the thing. Is
Hey, like, go ahead.
maybe this is just me, but do you ever find, I think a fundamental issue is actually defining what they mean by God.
Well, I thought it was interesting that Ross seemed to know exactly that. And no matter what you could say, he was going to hang on to his faith. And
Well, that's the whole thing. When he equated it down to, I think it was him, one of them equated it down, we only have 2 choices. Actually, we have 6 billion choices. Actually, closer to 7
Yeah,
now.
that's
That
what
was
Brain
sticky.
Said. Brain said we
And
have.
what's-
We have over
Like,
7
oh.
billion choices of who God is, because everybody that believes in a God has a different view on it.
Well, this is the issue, though. Those 7 billion choices are all very vague and don't describe anything.
Yeah,
So,
but they all claim to
it's
know.
just an ego.
They
it's
all
just-
claim to know.
right. And it
They
should be
claim to know.
universal.
It's purely based on their emotion.
Yep.
It's It's objective. They have to prove it. They never challenge it. It's your ego. You're not going to challenge your ego. You're going to defend it to the death. That's why it's so hard to defend, a case against a theist when it comes to whether they're being rational or not. Because who's going to say, "Oh, I'm irrational with my ego"? No.
Well, I actually will come down and say I can be irrational sometimes. I'm a realist to a certain extent. Everybody has those irrational moments. That's the whole thing. And the claim you don't is just, I think, idiotic.
Right. You really can't trust your own mind most of the time, which is why we have why we use the scientific method to begin with, and why we talk to each other in general and make sure we're all not crazy people.
I have a question about what Ross said earlier about, he's saying like he was a young Earth creationist. You guys heard that, right?
Yeah.
I'm like using someone's age as a really bad measuring scale for telling like this. Like the oldest tree in the world is almost 10,000 years old. Like, I mean, seriously, why the hell would a tree be 10,000 years old? The Earth's 6,000. I mean,
right?
That's better? It's a better measurement than you could count tree rings. You can count them. They grow yearly.
Well, it's stunning that people can simply hold conflicting beliefs in their head. And it's just bizarre that here's a fact that completely refutes your position, but yet you'll cling to both of them. And it's bizarre.
Yes.
Well,
I don't know how you break a guy like that.
Well, look at the Planck satellite. They just released data on that. I've been talking to Strife about that for the last couple of days. The information that comes off of that, that came from that, is just really mind-blowing, because it tells us that our physics is wrong on how we thought the universe was created. Not completely wrong. It shows that we were on the right track, but we were wrong. And all it means is we have to go back and figure out why we were wrong. And if a scientist had the dogmatic views that a lot of theists have, we'd have a real big issue.
Well, that's essentially it. Science is about, accomplishing something. Is it accurate? Does it produce good results with what, our predictions are stating? And if it's not, like you said, we want to find out why so we don't make that mistake again. And then we want to find out, well, what would produce an accurate result? It's not the way the theists do with their claims. They have a confirmation bias with it. They're going to be like, well, it doesn't agree with me, so therefore that has to be wrong.
Exactly.
And that's not science, and that doesn't produce good answers.
Science.
Well, the other thing is we try to take us out of the equation. We use machines and instruments to do the measurements instead of relying on just our personal observations. Because we know in science, we know that our personal observations can be skewed by emotion, can be skewed by personal bias. So we try to take that out. Unfortunately, we don't always take it out, but we try the best we can, and we build that into our models that there is a slight bias there. But that's why the scientific models that come out of our theories are more accurate than somebody who just looks at something and says, "Oh, that's how it works." Because most of the time, it's not how it actually works.
Well, one of the interesting things that is why do they think that a lot of their approaches, in terms of trying to convince people, especially when they try to convince people intelligently, just would never work? And it makes me question, you look at, Bruce Shepard, Stiggy, Ravenwolf, whatever you want to call him. When he entered the call, he just started screaming at some pretty inoffensive stuff that he just didn't understand. And I just wonder, what's the future of apologetics? Because their arguments are just so, no one...
Well, here's the problem.
Half a potato for a brain is going to...
His arguments are so old.
Well, the thing is most apologetics is aimed at very uneducated and very...
The believer.
No, not the believer.
Actually, Strife got it right. When I was studying apologetics, what it's mostly about is keeping a consistency and building, reconfirmations for those who do believe. Apologetics isn't really designed for those who are non-believers. And it makes sense, too, because the faith actually would teach that the non-believers, it's not up to us to convince them. It's up to God. Therefore, all we need to do is understand what God's trying to tell us. That would be the apologetics way of thinking. When you got these pseudo-apologists or whatever, I call them pop culture apologists, they're the ones thinking it's cosmological arguments going to convince people and crap like that. Apologists don't give a shit about that. Apologists are saying, okay, we have a dogma in the church. Is that consistent with the Bible? It's not. Okay, then we need to defend something that's consistent. And a lot of people don't realize that, and they think apologetics is this dishonest, approach to things. And to me, it was a great approach, especially before science. It's just now it's irrelevant.
Once science into it, it falls apart.
Exactly, it's irrelevant now because people don't really. Well, most people don't really benefit from these assumptions. They benefit from results.
Well, the thing is it, like I said, it's actually keyed towards uneducated. And unfortunately, most of the world has a very small IQ, and the average IQ, what was it, 71, is what it is now?
No, 70 is mentally retarded.
Okay, it's 89 or 87 to 108 or something like that. I gotta double check it later.
And
yeah,
whenever
it's 108,
yeah, I think they're about right. But I mean, it's aimed at people that aren't really designed to really use the scientific method, aren't really designed to understand science.
Most of these people are simply seeking what really sounds good. If you tell these people that, hey, you can live forever and in happiness and all your friends and family and little fluffy too, I mean, you're going to jump at that. And all you got to do is give me 10% of your, your earnings once a week and come say these little hymns and roll around and take the wafer or whatever the woo-woo is. Man, everybody would jump to that. It sounds great. It's just a shame that they're too fearful and too ignorant to think beyond that, which is our job to kind of educate people, but, whatever.
Unfortunately, they hold on to those beliefs
as much as I'd like to agree with as much as I would like to agree with the fact that it's our job, because, and believe me, I go after these theists as much as anybody else does, but sometimes some of these people are just so fucking gone. Just so gone. It's almost beyond the comprehension is beyond our reach.
They're off the cliff and they're dead.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
And they're the ones that do the most damage.
Exactly. These guys, they're so convinced that anyone who's against God is a liar, and that God is truth and all of truth. That anyone who goes against that, they think are being dishonest, and there's no dispute about it, even if you prove it to them, like we were mentioning earlier. Proof.
They go by the old court case approach, saying, "You want the truth? You can't handle the truth." Pretty much, they go by that whole thing.
Well, you heard it at the beginning of the show.
Their standard of proof, and their standard of truth,
right on the nail. Enemy.
Their standard of truth is so far beyond, or not beyond, is the wrong word. Beyond comprehension. No, beyond is the right word. Beyond comprehension. Because their standard of proof doesn't even compute, because they want to go by feeling, because if feeling is the only thing that they trust, because that's the only thing that they've ever known, because logic is something that's so far beyond them, it just mystifies them and they're afraid of it.
Wait, isn't feeling what toddlers use?
Yeah.
Like Teletubbies. Remember that? Remember that show? It was pretty much all about feelings.
Strife's actually onto something. I feel that a lot of it begins with how you were raised and how you approach the unknown. If in the beginning, if you approach the unknown and you get negative results, you don't like it, you don't like approaching the unknown, you begin to fear it. And so I think those people tend to be more closed-minded because they don't want to learn, that they're wrong. They don't want to approach the unknown or be subjected to it.
Well, I think
their belief in their God gives them the only thing they can understand, because everything else is beyond their comprehension. So they figure they put it in a little box called God and say, well, if I can't explain it, then I use the word God to explain everything, because I'm too ignorant to actually reach out with my brain and say, hey, what more is there? Because I don't want to understand it.
It's too difficult for them. It's far easier just to kick back and roll with the faith.
Well,
and
like
go to the
when I was
pancake
growing
breakfast and all the rest.
Well, whenever I was growing up, I think one of the things my parents did was, if I asked them a question, like I asked them once how VCR works, and my mom handed me a screwdriver and said, go take that one apart and you tell me. I mean, instead of saying, oh...
VCR work? Magic!
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Instead of saying that, she handed me a screwdriver and said, go figure it out.
I was told something usually vague but true. They'd say magnetism. And I'd be like, well, what's magnetism? Well, go read a book.
Yeah.
Well, I think maybe I was lucky, but my parents always, whenever they would always try to get me to be curious, and they never got mad at me for asking a question, which was always good. But another thing is my dad had a rule. He said, if you're trying to learn something, I will never make you pay for a book. That's important. If you want to buy a book and it's to make you smarter and you're going to read it, I will pay for it. And my dad probably ended up wasting, not wasting, but buying, hundreds of dollars worth of books over, however many, over the 18 years I lived with him. And that's the way to do it is, that might not be reasonable, but being able to allow people to learn, make it easy.
Well, it is kind of reasonable. It teaches you that hard work gives results. If you're interested in learning, it's no different than a kid who's interested in, not taking shortcuts because he knows that that will deprive him of the knowledge he could gain from the experience. These lessons are great to teach your kids. It's just like, since go back to the other topic, if you feel insecure about yourself, you kind of feel scared about exploring, about learning new things, about hard work, because you're afraid that it would all be for naught. You're going to fail. And I kind of was leading this into the idea of, the insecurity complex and superiority complex. They're always intertwined, So you'll have...
It's all the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's all this, the people who are the most arrogant and who think they have the truth are always the people who are the most wrong and the most unintelligent and the most, and just the most arrogant about it.
Yeah, arrogance is ignorance. I mean, if you think about it, you don't want to know because that will teach you you're wrong. Okay.
pretty much their position saying, you're saying I'm a liar because you're saying my personal experience is wrong or misinformed or misinterpreted or something.
Well,
you're saying that I'm a liar.
Their problem is that they don't want to be wrong. They're afraid to be wrong because they're afraid, because they figure out that someone tells them that their God does not exist, and then it's eventually proved to them that their God does not exist. Then they're afraid that of being wrong,
destroy their world,
and it'll destroy their ego and their I and their id.
Totally agree.
Their worldview is essentially it. The way I see it, it's like let's say you have royalty, and the royalty, since I want to go into the superiority complex and inferiority complex. Royalty, they are taught that they have to reach this standard, and anything below that standard is less than that standard. It's worthless compared to that standard. And so they think part of that standard is, royalty. They're greater than those peasants. Well, let's take it into theism. They need to reach the standard of Jesus or of God, and it's so high up there, but you're lowly, you're worthless compared to that. And if you don't have Jesus or God, you're useless. And
How horrible is that, though?
It teaches them that they are useless and that there's actually a scale, there's some standard that really doesn't exist.
It's really scary to me how much they hate. They always complain about atheists being hateful, but they hate. Apologists just hate humanity so much.
They want the world.
They're trying to suppress humanity because they're afraid of letting humanity expand. Because with humanity expand, it leaves their God behind.
Well,
I think
guilt
you
is
touched
a
on
great way to
something right
control.
there. I actually
Yeah,
read-
oh yeah, absolutely. Guilt is a great way of control.
And that's what
Because
it's all about.
Everybody has it. Everybody has guilt about something, and they
Guilt and fear.
just know how to just happen to know how to tap into it.
Exactly.
I actually I read a paper, a poll from like last month, and it actually stated that atheists are the most hated people in the United States.
Yes, we know this, I think.
That is absolutely crazy. I mean,
They actually,
murderers
yeah,
not as
atheists
hated
are
as
also
we are.
put
Rapists are not as
more
hated
than
as we are.
Terrorists.
worse
Terrorists
trusted
aren't as
than
hated as-
rapists are.
I was
Worse
telling
than
some
a
people
rapist.
the other day that they're like, why should we defend words? And I was like, it's important to defend words because words hold labels, and labels hold a lot of baggage to them. And so you start redefining things. You can basically label anyone a terrorist if you just redefine things enough. And I think atheism's been suspected of that. Now atheists are untrustworthy and they hate
They're Marxists,
everyone and
they're
they're
communists, they're
terrorists.
socialists.
I would go a different route with that. I don't personally. I think that we need to move away from a system of labels. That's our mode of
Oh, that's
communication.
essentially the goal. The goal I
is-
would like is to get rid of labels because it holds baggage. You don't.
I mean,
want
like
baggage.
Bionic Dance put out the most idiotic video again about whether a baby's an atheist, realizing that this like discussion over definitions really doesn't matter. What matters is the actual beliefs and the actual
You
discussion.
can't, and the baby can't tell you what it believes, so technically you really can't, it's nothing.
Well, I
Yeah,
just simply
baby
say
just
an
takes a
atheist.
shit and gets fed. That's what their life
Maybe
is.
it's like, when will my food come to me? Where's my mommy? I gotta be changed. I bet it doesn't think about anything more than that.
Yeah, an atheist is just a label. If you truly want to know what a person is, ask them. And ask them, with honest questions. Say, do you believe in God? And they might ask another question. Well, what do you mean by God? And then if you give them an honest answer, they might be able to answer you with a yes or no. If you give them an unhonest answer or a vague answer, they'll be like, I still don't know what you're talking about. And it doesn't mean they're trying to avoid the question. It just means you may, A, not know who your God is, really. B, you just miscommunicated it incorrectly. Or C, you're bullshitting yourself. But when you get this atheist label and crap like that, you can avoid all that. It makes things easy. Now you can just say, oh, you're an atheist, so therefore you are evil, and whatever labels you want to attach to it. And it's lazy. Yeah, labels just are lazy in the long run.
The
But
amazing
it's
thing
lazy.
to me
And
is
actually, that's the biggest problem with Christians, is they are lazy. Most of them are are nowhere near informed enough about their own religion, which is why none of them can defend it in any form, because if they were actually informed about it, they'd be like, am I fucking nuts for believing this shit? And they really would.
You guys want to hear something funny? You should watch Reverend X on YouTube. It's a preacher who preaches the word of Jesus, but he's the most vulgar guy I ever meet. It's hilarious. And most of his call-ins are from other preachers and Christians telling him to shut the hell up because he's embarrassing.
Is he for real, or is he?
Yes, he's for real. He is for real. You have
Isn't that like the black guy, the Reverend, Reverend?
Hey guys,
Yeah,
hey guys,
Reverend
listen,
X.
I'd like to stick around longer, but I have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, so I'm gonna head out. But thanks for inviting me to the after show.
Yeah,
Hey,
good
no
night.
problem, Packard. And
Have a good night, guys.
And say it again about what your show is again.
Oh, it's gonna be on Von Live TV / Packard Pokes next Friday. News, technology, religion, all that good stuff.
Packard also has a YouTube channel. It's Packard Pokes.
Packard Pokes.
You should put him on the payment.
That's a lot of P's I just heard.
Yes, there is.
It's actually a really good show. It's one of my favorite shows that I watch on YouTube. And
I just uploaded the show from last week, or at least segments of the. You want to download the show from iTunes though, because there's extra content that's not played on the show.
Yes,
Ooh,
or no.
collective edition.
It's Bible contradictions.
Wow.
It is a great show, and I actually recommend anybody who is listening to actually watch his shows. I think you'll find them very well informed and pretty funny too.
We try to have fun.
Yep.
Here, I'm gonna put the link in the chat room here.
And they're not afraid to discuss any topic, I noticed, and they
I will talk
research
about
any topic.
on the show. I will talk about anything and everything. And I will not recoil from anything.
Chris?
Yeah.
Can we bring Raatz in now? Because he wants to come in.
I don't care. It's your show.
Fine. There we go.
Not going to talk, probably.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good night, guys.
Good night.
See ya, Packard.
Night.
Hello,
So what did I all miss? What did
Were
I
you
miss?
watching it?
Some of it. I went away for a bit. But.
Well, what's a good place to start? I have to go in like 10 minutes, so maybe something I could address.
In
I remember.
early 1800s,
There was something I was
the Greeks began with physics by examining. Oh, stop. Okay.
There was something I wanted to say to Sam, actually, real quick. I was going to comment on a category, I thought perceived as a category error at the end there. This is just random, I don't know what you guys were talking about before, but in my opinion, this is my opinion, of course, but I don't think that neuroscience proper actually studies the mind itself, just the correlates.
Wait, Johanan Raatz, you said earlier that you think the mind is matter, right?
Where did I say?
You agreed with me when I said the mind is matter. You're like, I agree with you.
Oh no, I think
Question
I was pulling a trick on you there. I was saying.
Does the mind matter?
Well,
Yeah, I was pulling a trick on you there. I was trying a rhetorical trick on you there.
If you don't think that I would give you this.
Actually, it's a combination of neuroscience and psychology studies both how the brain operates and how the brain perceives.
I was going to say cognitive neuroscientists measure how the mind works. So not all neuroscientists do.
Right.
But I would suggest you take a psychology course or any sort of neurobiology course because they do deal with how the mind works.
Right. Well, the reason I'm saying this is I think at a very fundamental level there's a problem here, because I took a philosophy of mind class, and it's like a epistemic problem here, is that you can't actually study someone's subjective experience directly. You can say this correlates to this.
That's a philosophical viewpoint. That's
correct. That's
true.
correct. But you can't dismiss philosophy.
Well, it doesn't matter if
You
it's
could dismiss
perfect. All it matters is, does it produce accurate results?
And it does.
If I make a prediction
That's
about how
correlates.
this guy if I make a prediction about how this guy's going to behave, and that prediction's right, next explain why it's right, and then explain predictions for each step and why those steps also produce predictive results.
The correlates produce those results.
Well, you don't seem to, I don't, this is not to sound like I'm talking down to you or that I'm insulting you, but I just don't think you're very familiar with how science is done.
All right.
Because what you do is the best way that it's been explained to me is that you notice I had a great professor in evolutionary biology who every lecture she would explain, she would start with writing on the board, and it went pattern, mechanism, explanation. And so what science does is it tests mechanisms. So when you test a mechanism, you go beyond a correlate. Scientists go out of their way to avoid it being causation versus correlation. I mean, you're not going to get published if you just do correlates, or at least not anywhere notable.
Okay. What's to say that the correlates aren't reversed?
What's to say that they are?
Well, what I'm saying is when you said that no neuroscientists in the world would agree with me, and actually have some people who do actually agree with me, hammer off. And well, Henry Stapp he's in physics, but he does neuroscience stuff too on the side.
Well, he's not actually in the field though. He does it on the side.
Right, but the question I had though was, and this is not even from my theistic outlook. I deduced this conclusion when I was 15 years old, and my parents were actually not very happy at me at the time because they thought I was trying to quote explain the soul with science.
So how'd you explain the science?
Well, I figured some quantum mind thing, right?
That's not science, though.
That's not science.
That's not an answer.
That's philosophy.
Well, hold on. Let him hear him out. I don't know what he's talking about.
Go for it.
You cannot study the mind only through scientific means. It simply can't be done.
I disagree.
If you do that, you're engaging in a form of scientism.
What do you mean by study?
Well, first off, what do you mean? What do you mean you can only study the mind? Well, yeah, unpack what you mean, because you're saying you're being very intent. I don't want to accuse you of this, but it sounds like you're being intentionally vague in terms.
He is.
hold on. I'll break it down. It's the explanatory gap. Like, I can say what's going on objectively in the outside world, but I can't tell, for example, that, say, Chris is not a pea-zombie.
Not a what?
A pea-zombie, a philosophic zombie. You've heard of this before, right?
Yeah, but see, you're equating it down to, basically, I don't know the color red because I've never seen it. That's not an argument, okay?
Right.
That is not scientific. It's very dishonest on your part, Johan. I've told you this time and time again. You really do not understand how science works, you do not understand how physics work, and you do not understand the mathematics behind it.
Chris, settle down.
The key here is,
Jonathan, I'm going to, or Johanan, I'm going, Raatz, let's just go with Raatz. I'm going to debunk that argument because you can say that you can't study anything completely because science works on creating models, and the only way that anything's going to be completely explained is if you have a model the size of the universe itself, and obviously that's not possible. Yeah. That's not an argument that, I mean, that it's I hate to say it, but it's a laughably absurd argument against the neuroscientific explanation of the mind.
Yeah, science doesn't worry about what things are, but rather what they do.
That's what I'm saying, Pragmatic.
And science would say, okay, we know this does this, and this, and this, and this affects things in these ways, and that's how we describe things in science. We're not going to say, the meaning behind this is, or, we don't care.
Science doesn't assign
Pragmatic,
meaning
I agree
to
with
things.
you. I agree with you in that point.
Okay, cool.
What I'm saying is then, if that's what science is doing, then it is intellectually dishonest to actually say
No, it isn't.
No, it's not.
This is the mind.
No, that you're
because
being
you just admitted
that's not.
What it does. It only says what it does.
Wait, then I can't say that this is a quark because there's an amount of uncertainty in it.
It's not a matter of uncertainty. It's a matter of epistemic.
No. If you're going to use that argument, I expect it for you to use it on your own beliefs as well.
Okay.
Because that's intellectually inconsistent, I hate to say.
Yep.
Okay. In what way? And what particular place would you apply it to one of my arguments, though?
Well, what's his claim?
How do you know that your argument's even valid?
What's his claim?
Okay, my claim is that you can look inside the brain, for example, and you can say you try and look for the color red in the brain when someone sees the color red. You can pry the brain apart all day, you're not going to find the color red inside one of the neurons.
Well, I would agree with that, because you don't want to take the brain apart, because you're not really going to find a working brain.
That's actually, but actually it's false. We can identify where colors are processed in the brain, and we can examine that in several ways using several methodologies.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I'm going to ask a couple of questions here, Sam, just to make sure that I get the picture right. So you're saying that we do know where the color red is in the brain process?
I don't know specifically, but we know the visual process.
Someone does, okay.
I don't know. I wouldn't know.
Now, it's a knowable thing whether we know it or not.
Yeah.
To make sure that we're not talking about merely correlates rather than the color red itself.
Do you not understand my explanation of how mechanisms are tested?
I understand that there's a pattern, and that pattern that's very useful, and that gives us.
No, that's not what I said at all.
I know that's all science is.
I have to go.
That's all science cares about.
I have to go. But the point is when you create a hypothesis, then what you do, that hypothesis is specifically testing a mechanism, a proposed mechanism. This is how theories are built.
Yes, I know.
And you're testing the mechanism. It sounds like you took what I said and you blended it in your head. So let's go forward. Go ahead.
Okay, what I was getting at, though, is that if you're testing mechanisms only, and then the outcome, you're not actually solving what Chalmers would call the hard problem.
Well, what is the hard problem?
The hard problem is to explain why consciousness should emerge rather than a zombie that appears to be conscious.
But it is
the hard problem is
That's the problem.
How. That's the hard problem.
How the mind appears.
Why is an assumption. You got to ask. You got to assume.
Science doesn't say
Yeah, science doesn't assign purpose to things.
That's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm getting at. Is that we don't know why it does this. Why there are certain.
Okay.
There are certain questions.
Come on, you want to know why everything is the way it is, and the thing is that's not what science does.
That's my point.
Science explains how it is.
But why even
come across?
Wait.
Sorry, go on.
Why is it even irrelevant? Why is your question? How is it even relevant? How do we know it's not nonsensical?
Exactly.
Well, because I'm conscious and I know that I can't study my consciousness empirically.
That's not what I asked. How do we know it's not just a malformed question?
How do we know?
The question you just asked. It may be, in principle, a malformed question, just like asking...
The hard problem doesn't exist.
Then yes.
Well, it might be a malformed question, but that would imply a shift in ontology, possibly. But let's assume what I think...
Well, why are we assuming? I mean, just...
How would I assume, what you would assume, likely, that there is...
You keep dancing around what he's saying, Johan.
It's like asking who is 1 plus 1.
Wait, John.
What does that even mean?
Well, let's just level it at that. How would you prove the soul?
Well, I'm not aiming to prove the soul here. I'm aiming to point out that neuroscience, you're engaging in a category error when you're saying that neuroscience is dealing with one thing when it's only dealing with the...
No. Domains in cognitive... in neuroscience, cognitive neuroscience deals with specifically the features of the mind and how they interact with neurology.
Have they seen the color red interact with one of the neurons?
I just said I didn't know.
Wait, there's no such thing as the color red. The color red is a frequency of photon.
Well,
I'm looking at the color red right now, the qualia.
The color red, though, you don't
it's
see...
a frequency, Johan.
There's no such thing as an objective color red. It's like there's no such thing as plutonic forms.
Yes, of course there are.
No,
the qualia is not the frequency it's correlated with. The qualia is simply the qualia. I'm looking at the color red right now. I know it exists. Now, yes, there are photons impinging on my eyes that are doing that, they're translating that qualia.
Let me ask you this. When you're looking at your screen, you see something yellow? What color do you see?
Yellow.
Okay, how about green?
Green. But blue and yellow there together.
Okay, there you go. Certain colors on the screen are just tricking you. Your brain is just taking the wavelength and associating it with, the closest color it can, and it chooses that.
That's because qualia are subjective. That's because qualia have a subjective existence.
Now let me ask you this: how do we know that?
No, it's because your brain can't process it precisely. That's the whole thing.
Exactly. How do we know that, though? How do you come across
the ability of the brain to actually do it precisely as it's subjective?
You are the camera, and
Guys. I have to go, so I'm going to leave on one last point.
Go ahead.
I would highly suggest that Johan actually try to engage in what scientific thinking actually is regarding this, because I've heard so many theists just out of hand dismiss what neuroscience has told us is just saying, oh, it's just correlation, without actually understanding any of the classic experiments in the area or learning the methods by which they do these experiments. And it seems like you kind of did that earlier.
I suppose. Well, maybe I should take a class in neuroscience. It seems to me that this is unlike all the other sciences we have in that.
No, it's not really. It's pretty.
It's operating in two different epistemic domains.
No, it's just applying scientific methodologies to studying the mind.
Right, but the mind is subjective. It's not. See my problem here? Maybe it's a little frustrating to explain here, but you see the empirical out there world, and if you're studying subjective experience, what you're doing is no longer science in the proper sense.
Jonathan,
they're not studying the actual experience. They're studying
the
effects of the experience.
Exactly.
Yes, and the way you have those effects are by those experiences that you can replicate. You can replicate the experience with other people.
Yeah.
Yes.
You couldn't replicate the experience. What's the point? You're just making up crap. Then you're saying, I saw a giant flying pterosaur. Can you replicate that?
You're not solving the epistemic bound. Yes, you're producing a very.
No, you want to know why? Why it's like that? We don't.
That's my point, Chris. That's my point.
There is no why in science.
It doesn't matter in science.
There is no why in science.
So what? So you're asking.
Well, it depends on the why.
And science.
I'm about to make a
philosophy to get the bigger picture.
But
let's say
that it's only science. You're saying that you are projecting. This is called the straw man fallacy. I mean, you're projecting a set. That's not what we're doing. When did I say that the only source of knowledge is science?
Okay, not you, but Chris rather was saying that.
I'm sure that
that science does not address the why.
It's indifferent.
Well, it depends on what you mean by why.
It's just like.
For example, if I ask the question, why is it that he keeps calling the color green red when everyone else is saying it's red? Science would then examine
red, green,
what the guy's responses and reactions are to certain stimuli and use that to help make a diagnosis on possible reasons why, or the errors that might be happening that cause him to see the color green whenever we all see red.
Hence being called.
Science can answer.
Right. I'm not saying neuroscience hasn't figured out a bunch of the how. I'm saying it doesn't have figured out the why.
So
that's part of what we're looking at. We're not the right of the how.
And what relevance does the why have to anything?
See, the why presupposes that we actually have a purpose, or that everything had an actual.
The why, rather.
Oh, okay. So what do you?
The better way to describe this is, yes, we have a very valid explanation for how the brain does X, Y, or Z.
And why is it valid?
Because the correlates to science studies.
Science doesn't only study correlates. How many times do I'm
here's the problem. Solipsism. Sam, solipsism. How do you get past the solipsism problem? Let's say I'm a solipsist. You assume.
We're not talking about
solipsism. Let's leave
the philosophical
outside of you.
Let's leave the mental masturbation for someplace else, and let's just go on what neuroscience actually is.
Study of the brain.
Yes, and it breaks down the mechanisms. It's not merely correlates. It's also finding and testing mechanistic explanations.
Yes, it searches and examines neurons and how they behave in the brain and how they respond, etc. So that's something tangible in a sense.
So when you keep saying, "Oh, it just gets the correlates," and then the correlates don't imply it just demonstrates that you have no clue what you're talking about.
But this is philosophy of mind, though. This is the entire point.
But you're using philosophy of mind to talk about science, yet science does not deal with philosophy of mind.
What I'm saying,
its own thing.
What I'm saying is that philosophy of mind is the proper domain for the mind. Neuroscience is the proper domain of the brain. And when neuroscience...
Why can't they both have things to say?
They do both have things to say. I do not believe in dualism. I don't believe in dualism.
But you just said there's a dualism. You just said there's a distinction between the mind and the brain.
That's a practical dualism only, not an official or an actual dualism.
Philosophy is good for metacognitive, approaches when you're examining your own thoughts, but that has nothing to do with science. That deals with self-respect or retrospection.
Yeah, that's correct. That's my whole point. Is that you can't study the mind with science. That was the point of Chalmers' hard problem.
Well,
you can't study the mind with science entirely.
But science takes it to step that can't
study
solve.
anything entirely with science. It's a moot point.
It's not. This is not a matter of like finding the next level of accuracy. This is a matter of a fundamental epistemic gap. It's not. See, what you're saying, I think, Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, is that you can refine your measurements and get better. And obviously, we can never refine our measurements to infinity, right? We can never ultimately get the ultimate answer with the science. We can get a refined answer.
No, what I'm saying is that any methodology of understanding has its limitations.
Yes, and
I find no issue with that, and I still would regard neuroscience as being the chief way to understand the actual functions of the mind and of the brain.
Yeah, right. And without science, your metacognitive ability would be very limited, because you wouldn't have much to examine.
That's correct, but that doesn't make the tiny extra percent irrelevant, though.
Well, I never said it would make it irrelevant.
I never said it.
Just making sure.
Wait, what standards under the philosophy of mind has contributed to anything that neuroscience hasn't? What has it done? I'm curious.
Well, it's shown that there is a gulf between...
But it hasn't shown anything. It was just the thought. It was just the thought of it.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing:
lots of conclusions. I mean,
it doesn't.
Descartes' one, for example, is the very first one. Is I think, therefore.
Wow, do you? I mean.
That's a very simple example.
Do you ever quote anyone that's not an apologist?
Descartes is not. Well, suppose he
Yes,
he was also,
yeah. Oh, come
he
on.
was in a sense, but he was also like, his whole philosophy was much more than just an apology. It was, he got into everything from epistemology.
You know
to
what I'm saying, though.
I know
mean,
what
like,
you're
this
saying,
is-
but Descartes was not. Descartes
I mean,
was,
if-
when I took
if what-
philosophy, he was not treated as an apologist. Okay, yes, he did have his little argument for God that we discussed, but that wasn't the whole Descartes. Descartes was much bigger than just an apologist. And in fact,
I know.
philosophers back then did their apology stuff on the side, or as part of their philosophy, but they had much more than just.
You'll be surprised by this, but I'm actually pretty knowledgeable in philosophy as well.
Good.
I'm very
Prove
curious
that you are the one who is thinking that you are, and therefore you are.
I'm self-aware of it. That's what's called innate knowledge.
Prove that your self-awareness is truly yours.
That's the point of innateness, is that it's known but not
He's trolling you. But,
Yeah, I'm just trolling.
I
I'm just
know,
kidding. I'm sorry. Go on.
Yeah,
but I mean, this is the. I mean, like, philosophy has its use, but it's in the 20th century. I mean, science has very, very much eroded away much of the utility of philosophy.
Right.
Because now we can measure the things that were only philosophical in nature to a
I
large
couldn't agree more.
That's what I'm getting at here, is that basically saying that the mind reduces. I wanted to make a video because I saw Dan Dennett making this fallacy a couple of times in a very subtle way.
But he's also a philosopher. He's not.
Oh yeah,
a
I know he is. I
neuroscientist.
know
That
he
would
is.
take
He
his
is.
lead.
Well, him being a philosopher doesn't make him, less credible.
He's a smart guy. I read some of his stuff. He's definitely a smart guy. I will give you that. He's basically, by saying that the mind reduces to a non-conscious brain, presupposes certain things about fundamental ontology which are not actually scientific, and they're actually, when you get to the bottom of it, it turns presuppositional in nature.
Well, I'm confused by your term non-conscious brain.
Okay, he's a materialist, right? A limited materialist.
How's a non-conscious brain?
That's what he's trying to answer. Hold on.
Okay, he's a materialist, correct?
I don't know.
Yes.
That's his field. His brand. He believes in what's called eliminative materialism, correct? Regarding the mind, along with the Churchlands and I think some other people.
Can you just address the argument? Sorry to be impatient.
Okay. What I'm getting at is, if you reframe every last bit of empirical data you get from neuroscience in terms of an idealist framework rather than a materialist framework, you get results. The whole thing turns on its head.
Give an example. I'm still confused.
Okay, so if we're all inside God's mind and brains are a projection of God's mind, then yes, our brains are direct correlates of the mind, which Sam was pointing out with the neuroscience, right? And the conclusions of neuroscience are all valid, but it's in that case, mind does not reduce to non-mind in the end, because the brain is ultimately a projection of a larger mind. And that
Yeah,
explains
but
our
you still
problem.
haven't answered what the larger mind is.
Well, that's...
I mean, this. I'm
You
sorry to
call
say,
it-
but
call
this is
it
just
a-
philosophical masturbation.
it
If there's
is
any proof to
philosophical
what you're
masturbation,
saying.
but you need philosophy.
Totally.
I mean, how useful is this in any discussion of the fundamental?
Right. What is this
It's
actually?
only
Sam,
useful when you
I mean,
take
this
the
is why
facts and you're trying to
philosophy
figure out what
departments
to
are
Guys,
crumbling,
guys.
and science departments are the ones getting funding.
guys, you're shifting the goalposts here from truthfulness to usefulness.
Well, how do you know the truth?
Kind of.
Yeah, but
question is, how do you know the truth?
As useful.
Well,
If you think about it, all your
By your own-
experience,
it's basic epistemology.
No,
all-
you
no,
have
all
to
your
know.
experience-
How do you know though? Empirically,
guys.
we could. That's a way we can know things. Empirical.
Yeah, but how do you know you can know with empirical stuff?
here's the
By
thing.
its very nature, empiricism is a way of knowing.
Hold on. Explain.
No.
Obviously,
I don't want to let you get away with this. Like, you just had a
'Cause what you're doing-
hypothetical about.
What
you
you're
just-
doing. is
You just
replacing-
brought up.
Wait,
this-
Rats. Let's him talk.
All right, go ahead.
All you
Okay.
did was bring up a hypothetical. You said this would work in this framework. But here's the thing: there's no reason to suppose that just because if we were projections of God's, there's no reason to say that has any bearing or validity in this discussion, because you haven't demonstrated your premise.
Correct.
Well, my premise is
And
that
you never could
when
either.
you actually my premise is that when you actually go and look in the mind, you don't actually see the color red and so forth themselves. You see neurons.
That is the color red.
Yes, but what do you do
That's
when
not
you get?
colored
What do you
red.
do when you
It's
make a
colored
For that
red.
neuron
individual,
network?
it is.
You make a neuron network. It's more than just a neuron by itself. One neuron by itself is not a
Yes.
mind.
A telephone chain, which is arranged just like a set of neurons, is also not a
The
mind.
internet is not one computer. It's many,
Yes, the
many
internet.
computers.
The internet does not jump. Okay.
The internet is a
This
series
is not.
of
We
tubes.
don't know. Therefore, emergence did. Okay.
No, it's like an analogy. The internet
Yeah, I know
is
it's
an
an
emergent
analogy.
property of when you have many
Of
computers
one
connected
computer.
together.
The problem is with this is that when you have an emergent property, you can always take the emergent structure and break that structure down into its constituent components.
Okay, so let's break down what knowledge is. What is
No.
Let's
But
put down the color red. Now,
You mean what part of the brain is that
Red
used
is
for
knowledge.
visual?
No,
visual?
I'm going to test your hypothesis that it is actually emergence involved.
well,
Not
not to derail this, but this could all just be an argument from ignorance because neuroscience isn't advanced enough to have a complete explanation of the brain.
Okay.
So that's kind of a very
solution
slick tactic, but it doesn't
Solution
really
X.
work.
Let's suppose solution X in the future, and you're suggesting that we don't know what the answer is, but you're suggesting that wherever the answer is, it lies in emergence, right?
I don't know what the answer is, so why would I mean, that's my that's the current view of how the mind works, but
Okay, so then
if I don't know the answer, then why are we speculating on
because you
something I
don't know
don't
the
know?
answer on a posteriori grounds. We do have a priori grounds means at our disposal, though.
What?
He's saying that we can take... He wants to use philosophy to do away with the science.
Not to do
here's
away
the
with the
problem,
science, to
guys.
kill the other
But you
side of the
cannot validate
He hasn't addressed
philosophy.
what knowledge is.
Well,
That's very important here, because if we're going to talk about the color red, that's a type of knowledge. So
And
we
we
need
can
to
test
first
the color
understand
red
what it is.
empirically.
Let's go back to epistemology. So knowledge is justified true belief, correct?
And we
Well,
do
knowledge is simply what we use to get around in life, collect more knowledge, and solve problems. And the whole purpose of knowledge is to solve our problems that we encounter in life.
The whole point of knowledge is for it to be true.
No.
No, it's for it to be useful.
No, knowledge
Solve
doesn't have to be true.
That's not.
well,
that's not
to be fair, without this devolving into a discussion of what the meaning of truth is, under a certain definition, that being pragmatic truth, yes, knowledge can be based on what's useful. In the scope of our evolutionary history, that is what the utility of the cognitive facet that is knowledge. You're both right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking in the philosophic sense. I understand that in the functional sense, we have to get around in life and we can't.
But the problem with the philosophical sense is you still don't define certain terms. You'll say knowledge is truth, and I'll ask what is truth. Until you can describe what truth is, it's a meaningless word. So, I'm sorry, I'll let you talk. Sorry.
Yeah, so we have this problem in epistemology.
Wait,
where
you're not answering Prax's thing.
I'm getting there.
You did answer my question. He's trying to answer the rest of it. So continue.
I gotta set the framework up for this. All right. So, knowledge is, in the philosophic sense, justified true belief, and so to get to true belief, you need to have justification, right? Now, the justification, of course, is based on a deeper argument, which has its own premises, and then, of course, you have to prove those premises with more arguments, and so on and so forth. So now the problem is we know for a fact that knowledge in the philosophic sense does exist, because the statement, I know that there is no knowledge, is a contradiction in terms. Therefore, knowledge does exist in some sense, at some level. Mm-hmm. And the problem is that if we have an infinite regress of arguments upon arguments upon arguments, we can't actually justify anything like that. It just goes on.
That's why it stops at experience.
Wait, what about this? We assume knowledge.
No, knowledge is experience. We experience something.
Yes, I know, but we assume it to be
true. We then
true.
interpret what we
don't know it
experience.
to be true.
So what we experience is absolute. What we interpret it to be is fallacious.
That's better. That's actually partial. I would agree partially with Pragmatic there. What I would get at, though, on another level is to observe things, you have to have a mind to do this. And so what I was getting at with this whole thing is that at some level you have to have knowledge which is known to be true, but not for any additional reasons. It simply is known in its own sense, and this is what you would think of Platonic. This is Plato's original.
It's got to be true, because if this thing, whatever it is, isn't true, we couldn't process or function.
Yeah, it can't be provably true. It has to be true in such a way that we know it to be true, but not provably true.
You mean
Because otherwise,
self-evident?
that would defeat the purpose. We'd have another chain of infinite regresses.
That's why experience is considered our absolute.
Yeah, self-evident.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
in fact by definition self-evident. We see it.
I would
It's
include a priori.
self-evident.
So what you experience is self-evident. That would include such things as qualia. They have an existence even if they are subjective in nature. It's objective in an epistemic sense.
Yeah, so if I see red, whether I interpret red as green, blue, whatever is irrelevant, I still saw it. And then later, someone might say, well, you're interpreting it wrong. You said it was green. And through science, we'll be able to find accurate ways to measure what red is in the general sense, and then see if everything is conformed to that. And anything that doesn't conform to that is considered to be abnormal. And if there's a way to correct that, to make everything consistent, great. And if there's not, we'll try to figure out how. Consistency is key to anything working. If it's not consistent, it's not working. So, there. Sorry.
All right. Yeah, so what I was getting with Sam was not so much that, neuroscience is very good at what it's doing, but I was just saying that in order to get the complete picture, you need that little extra bit of philosophy there. I mean, not that it's going to be very useful, but just to fill in the picture, you have to get the extra step with the philosophy to fix the hard problem.
Yeah, when I see people studying philosophy, I'm thinking, good. It at least exercises the brain. It helps them think. It helps them be able to truly evaluate how to explain themselves. It's very challenging. The more you study it, the better you are at explaining yourself. But it's still not to discredit science. Science overall trusts philosophy because science is how we gather data. It's how we make correct and consistent evaluations and be able to describe them correctly and consistently to other people.
Science gives us answers.
Yeah, exactly.
And it gives us
Points I'd like to make here is that I would actually, this is because I took philosophy as well as science, this may color my thinking, but I do think that philosophy actually comes first because science is built into philosophy.
Well, yeah, science is built in on empiricism, naturalism, and verificationalism, and a few other things.
Reductionism.
Right, so it is based on, at some level, you have to solve the problem of deduction.
It's based on philosophies that have been shown to work, in a sense.
Yes.
Not philosophies like the philosophy of mind.
Shown to be true.
What?
They've been shown to be true. For example,
Yeah, verified.
They're shown to work. I don't think
to be verified. That's a better way to say it.
Philosophy, you cannot prove it.
Well, you're not supposed to prove philosophy, at least.
Yeah, so you can't
prove
say
it to yourself.
True.
Prove it to yourself from philosophy.
You assume it.
No, it's not assumed. It's in that case.
Philosophy is to study something, guys. You don't prove it. It's a method. If you're trying to prove the very method and use the very method to prove itself, that makes no sense. Okay.
It's like you can't.
It's like trying to verify verificationalism. What the hell does that even mean? You know?
I had a fun video on that. So what I was also going to get at then is that this is not like invalidating science in any sense, like you're suggesting. So, like, I'm not saying philosophy, therefore science is wrong. It's simply philosophy, and therefore we have to interpret the fundamental way in which we view the evidence has to be. We view it a completely different way then.
Well, it has to accomplish whatever your goal is.
It has to accomplish whatever the goal is. In that case, it doesn't matter what underlying metaphysics you use because it's simply a method. But that method works either with, say, materialism or idealism. It's blind between the two. But then,
idealism, I'm sorry.
When you get
I just rejoined, but I just want to put a big stamp on this and saying, like, who cares?
Okay, I was just bringing it up because it came into the relevance of the debate before with at the end there when we were talking about how.
Well, like, I mean, I hate to have to say this again, but I mean, you would benefit from a proper science education because these concerns are not as prominent, I would say.
They're just not relevant. I'm
Prominent.
sorry.
Well, they're not prominent. They're prominent in philosophy of mind classes. So.
But philosophy of mind classes have not produced equipment and methodology by which we can treat, you know.
They produce scientific method, but that's a different matter. What I'm saying is, if what you're after is utility, then yes, you could just stop at the neuroscience. If you want to get the bigger picture, look for the truth. You have to look at both science and philosophy.
Is this bigger picture truth you're talking about some supernatural being? I don't know. I mean, that's where I'm kind of. This whole conversation started 4 hours ago.
It may or may not go there. I have a cool argument. I was going to actually respond to something you had said, Tom, when you said that you thought that you couldn't see God anywhere. Check this out. Even if, obviously, even if you think that the mind is just a material product of the brain and all that, just play along with this for a moment. We all agree substance dualism is problematic. Okay, there are no ghosts in the machine. That said, not. Yes, good. No remaining theists here. They're of the funny variety. The second thing then is you can't reduce. I mean, just on purely a priori grounds. Just take this. Pretend you don't even know about science yet. You're doing this all on philosophical grounds. You can't reduce the mind to non-mind in an epistemic sense.
What do you mean, gray matter? What about gray matter? Brain matter?
Yeah, yes, I know that, but that's before you do. That's on a utility grounds. I'm looking for a philosophical.
Well, the ultimate goal is to be able to reduce the mind down to if-then statements.
Anything. You cannot philosophically make anything into existence be anything you want.
Well, if you can break the mind down to Boolean logic statements, then yeah, it would be a non-mind entity. It'd just be a bunch of chemical reactions.
Well, Boolean logic statements are actually mathematical abstractions, but that's
the point.
Yeah,
it's
that's
basically
the point.
saying.
I know. Well, I do bring in some weird, like you've heard of Brian Greene discussing Max Tegmark's mathematical universe hypothesis.
I'd say fuzzy. I say probabilistic computer would be the closest thing.
Yeah. Well, what he was. Brian Greene was making this example. He had this example where he was discussing Bostrom's simulated universe, and he said, "I don't take this seriously, but."
God.
No, hold on, I'm not going there. But he said there's an interesting conclusion you can reach by that kind of thinking. And so what he said is, let's just take on board that we are in a simulation for the time being. Not that that's true, but that it could be true. If that's true, then our minds would simply be the computations in the computer.
Okay.
What's curious about this, though, is you take away, you think about what's going on in the computer. Yes, there's a hard drive inside this and all this, and he pointed this out.
Why is any of this relevant?
Okay,
he's going to go into errors in a hard drive and how you can see relatives of skipping of a hard drive. Problem with that would be the fact that you would be assuming that the hard drive's acting upon things we've observed within its own virtual reality.
That's not where I'm going with this, I don't think. But anyway,
I hope you're getting to God in somewhere in the next 20 minutes here.
I'm sorry, but my eyes just kind of glazed over right now.
13 more minutes we have, and then it's over.
Right. What he was saying is what you actually are is not the actual matter in that hard drive. You're the ones and zeros something around the hard drive. And so he was saying, by extension, we could say that math simply, or that, our experience of the universe is simply what mathematics feels like. And so from there, he was making the suggestion that, perhaps something like Tegmark's view is true, and then therefore everything at the bottom ultimately is math. There's nothing but
biggest issue in that was you are not the ones and zeros. You are the responses and the stimuluses and how they're working together. You are the brain and the computer combined.
You could break those into ones and zeros, right?
No. Like this.
Computer can.
You can make a AND gate. 1, 0, and what the output is.
Let me try.
You're all of it. You're all of it. You're not the ones and zeros.
I'm sorry. I'm just failing to see how any of this is
remotely relevant.
I don't know.
Let me try different.
I mean, no. I understand that this is what passes for academia in philosophy, but I mean, at what point does this,
accomplish anything?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just wondering where the takeaway is, because I mean, yes, hypotheticals are wonderful things, but I would like to deal with reality here.
Yeah.
The only time I ever use hypotheticals is in calculus, when I'm like, well, if this hits incredibly high amounts, am I at an impasse here? Does this equation go away? Is this equation even relevant? But that's it. It's the only assumptions I'm going to make, or hypothesis, when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Mortal logic works in a similar sense. So,
but you do realize Boolean logic does not actually exist, right?
Boolean logic?
Yeah, it does not actually exist.
I mean, it's just about
it's a platonic form.
What?
I'm a Platonist, Sam.
Yes, and that's why you're messed up, in our opinion, because who does that anymore?
That's why you're messed up in line, because you're not a Platonist, and that's the episode.
Platonism is bullcrap.
Numbers just mean relationships.
No, but this.
Say 1 and 2
logic does
and
not
3.
exist in the real world. I know
Hold
this.
on.
Because
numbers can be provenly shown to be just simply relationships. Whenever you use numbers, you're just showing relationships with whatever unit you're talking about.
Yes, Prag. And
that's
that
it.
relationship for Boolean logic is on and off.
Wait. I have a question. Raatz, what's the highest level math course you've ever taken?
Vector analysis, sorry.
And did that entail taking axioms and proving, the consequences of those axioms, let's say in a discrete mathematics or a linear algebra type of course?
Ooh, a theorem.
We did some theorems, and I did linear algebra as well.
Right. So, I mean, if you've taken discrete math, any type of formal mathematics, you're taught how you can just generate the concept of the numbers. That's simple. It's just through subset construction.
Right, which can all be done purely abstractly.
Yeah, you could say the subset R contains both direction and number, or angle, and there, you got a vector. And you'll realize that vectors don't add the same as other relationships, other sets.
Correct.
You create these rules. That's what numbers are.
That's
relationships.
What's the name of it? There's a philosophy of mathematics. I forget what this... This is actually... I've seen this before in philosophy of mathematics, actually.
Oh, God. Do you have any education outside of philosophy?
Yeah, physics major.
Alright.
Okay.
Sam.
I could go with
I'm sorry, it's just like this is
cool,
useless mental masturbation. Like I'm trying not to be impatient with you, but like dude, you wouldn't get to a point. I mean, I'm sorry, but it's getting to the point where you wouldn't get to a point if it smacked you in the face, because this is I'm sorry, my time is fairly valuable. So let's get to a point. I mean, this is why I feel reasonably frustrated.
Is there an orgasm at the end of the mental masturbation?
Oh, I hope so.
I'm not cleaning it up.
All right, one minute, guys. Minds can exist in solipsist universes. Nothing material can exist in a solipsist universe. Therefore, minds are immaterial. Dualism is impossible.
I knew it.
I'm not a solipsist. Dualism is impossible. I use it as an example, hypothetical. Dualism is impossible. Therefore, only the mind can exist, and no other substance can exist. Thus, monistic.
How do you know that without a mind?
Because I am a mind.
Yes, but how do you know what it's like without a mind?
Why did you use the word I?
Because I can exclude the possibility of a mind. With the fact
you still use the word I.
The fact that dualism is impossible, and the fact that the mind could exist in a solipsist universe, and the fact that nothing material can exist in a solipsist universe, demonstrates
you do realize the word I implies dualism, right?
No.
I implies self.
Well, then we're at an impasse here, and we got a big problem, and I really don't want to address it right now.
Because I'm a monistic idealist. My conclusion was monistic idealism is true, therefore God exists. And that answers Tom's question of where God is.
Well, yeah, you're God.
No, you're looking...
That's a huge stretch, man. That's a huge stretch.
Those are. Can you see a problem in theory with those three premises, though?
What the fuck?
You're just describing God as your ego.
No, okay. Let me say it once more. Minds can exist in immaterial solipsist universes. Nothing material can exist in solipsist.
How do you know that? How do you know what the fuck is immaterial?
I mean, but why is the fact that a mind can exist in a theoretical universe, if that universe is not demonstrably true, if it's not...
Because it's a modal logic argument.
Yeah, but this is why modal logic is horseshit. I mean,
this is simply Leibniz's law. This is fundamental symbolic logic.
You understand the difference between validity and soundness, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I get the point, but what I'm saying
the argument's valid. I'm just debating that it has any
the first premise is also valid. It may not be sound. The reason we know it's sound is because we can see the whole point of me putting a mind in a solipsist universe in premise 1 was to demonstrate that the mind has such properties that it could exist in such a universe.
Wait. Mind can't exist in a solipsist universe because this mind is the only the solipsist is the mind in the universe, and that's it.
Yeah.
So how the hell do you put a mind in a solipsist universe if there's already a mind there?
You basically put it in itself, not in a figurative sense. The mind is the universe in that case. This is very simple modal logic. The mind could exist in that state.
Hence, you are God.
You're part of God. You're a pixel of God.
I will worship you. Can you shut up now?
You see how simple that argument is, though, don't you?
I'm just teasing.
It's so absurd.
That was rude of me.
It sounds absurd, but you can't refute the premises, which is the crazy. I put this on rational skepticism.
I can't refute the ontological argument, yet it's unsound.
Right, but unsoundness means something's wrong with one of the premises.
No, that's validity.
No, validity is if the conclusion follows from the premises.
Yeah, validity, yeah, exactly. Validity just means does it all come to the conclusion. Soundness means is it relevant to reality? Do all the premises have relevance to the universe, to the actual reality around us?
Okay,
I could say that all elephants are pink, or if all elephants are pink, then my feet smell. And then I could say all elephants are pink, therefore my feet smell. Is completely irrelevant to the actual universe.
Right. That's completely irrelevant to the actual universe, but
it is valid.
Premise 1 is relevant to the mind, though.
But that's not relative to the universe.
But why is that relevant to the universe?
Because if that statement follows, then it means that the mind is immaterial, and then if we add premise 3 and that dualism is impossible, we reach the conclusion that matter cannot possibly exist.
That makes no.
We know very little about matter, but.
Yeah, that's crazy stuff, man. I'm sorry.
Oh, I told you remember the Koch and Specker theorem? There's nothing there when you're not looking at it.
You mean you don't see the tree when you're looking at the tree?
So if I set a bomb off and set the timer to 1 hour and walk away, it will never blow up?
No, it'll blow up when you look at it again.
But I never bothered to look back, so I can stay perfectly safe.
Again, this doesn't... at what point does this apply to the real world?
Hey, Sam,
it doesn't. That's the masturbation.
Right.
You're safe.
Here's where
I set a bomb in your house. I set it to go off in 5 minutes, but I can't see your house, so you're perfect.
I mean, it seems like
as long as I don't have to do the dishes.
You're saying that New York City exists. You're saying New York City's in the real world, therefore Spider-Man exists.
Look in the description, you'll see how it's relevant to real life.
Well, if it was relevant to real life, it would be all over the place.
Hold on, it is. You'll see. 1 second.
I mean, I don't see how that really conflicts with anything.
Here, look, this one's even more explicit. Look at that one.
You use the same links again.
No, there are 2 links.
No, but these links you gave before.
Oh, yes, beforehand, yes. Okay, well, not everyone, I don't think Sam saw them.
No, I know, but you did this.
I feel sorry for these quantum physicists because, they're dealing with some really heavy stuff, and then you got these guys going out there trying to explain it, and they just explain it away so quickly that these quantum physicists are like, "The fuck is he talking about?" And
yeah,
it's like,
oh, it's quantum mechanics. Does that mean, Raatz, does that mean if a bullet shot at me and I turn around right before the bullet hits me, the bullet will not kill me?
You turn right around before the bullet hits you.
Does that mean the bullet won't kill me?
Yeah, you don't see it coming. You looked at the bullet.
I failed to see how this is anything other than mental masturbation.
I'm just saying how absurd it sounds. Totally. It's like then the bullet's frozen in time and it won't kill me, so I can just walk away.
I don't want my orgasm.
I mean, this is the reason why, as a bio TA, I get paid more than a.
Let me give you a quote from a physicist.
So was Abraham Lincoln staring at the guy when he shot him?
Okay, let's roll this down, because we've been going in masturbating circles for a while.
Alright,
yeah.
I orgasm like 8 times. I get tired, guys.
So, this is a physicist saying, explain the physics in his own words. This is a guy from Johns Hopkins University. Okay, this is written, published in Nature, so this is, official, even though this is controversial.
What year?
2007.
And who is he?
I don't believe 2007 ever happened.
Richard Henry. Okay, he said...
Why is this relevant?
You'll see. And if mind is not the product of real matter, but is rather the creator of the illusion of material reality, which has in fact, despite the materialists, been known to be the case since the discovery of quantum mechanics in 1925, then a theistic view of our existence becomes the only rational alternative to solipsism.
He's an apologist, isn't he?
No, he's a physicist.
What's his name?
Richard Con Henry.
He'll be an apologist
C-O-N?
later. He'll be apologizing a lot.
He's not a
I'm
Christian.
so unconvinced.
Can you send me the Nature article?
Yeah, let me see if I can find it. This is Anton's. It's down below his link. Let me see if I can get the Nature version of it.
I will admit, though, this little image on this page is really fucking cool. You guys gotta click it. Go to the Henry Phaj.
That is a pretty cool image.
Yeah, that's
That's
awesome.
a quantum probability. Pretty awesome, eh?
What the fuck?
I don't know what it is, but I am. Wow, that's awesome. I want it.
I got no information on this guy.
That's not right. She said John Hopkins. I looked him up. All right, I've talked to someone who actually goes to John Hopkins and knows him.
This is his. So this is his personal website.
Yeah, there's a few.
Well,
Nature here.
in Nature, though, is he actually saying that this is the?
Yes,
I'd be
this
interested.
was published in Nature. This was published in Nature.
Well, no. This is his. Let's see. Well, this is an essay first. It's not a. I'd like to point out this isn't actually research. So
yeah, I know. This
as a citation, this is pretty much the poorest of anything in peer review you're going to be able to.
The point is that obviously it's not going to get through peer review as such because this is going to cause a huge scandal, right? They're not going to. You have to look at the physics yourself to come to the conclusion because they're going to complain and.
Well, I mean,
there's no way I'll get published.
You just cited this, and it's an essay. I mean, it's not a.
I'm pointing out that this is his opinion of the physics in his own words, and I can give you a similar quotation from Max Planck, which is very unequivocal.
Yeah, but you're just citing. This would be different if
Here's a 2,000-page book, guys. This proves me right.
Yeah, I mean,
If you want the, you have to dig into this stuff if you want to understand this. It's not going to be cited in it.
You have to read my 2,000-page book.
It's a politics of academia thing, okay?
Guys, until you read my 2,000-page book, you can't have a say on this argument.
Well,
it was 2,000 pages. It was.
Here's my issue with this is,
Wait.
You're not listing any of the responses to this.
I found him. He believes in biocentrism.
That's Robert Lanza. He's also a very famous scientist. Not a physicist, but he is a stem cell biologist.
I know very little about that, but it sounds like a mental disorder.
No, it's like it says the theory states that life and biology are central to being, reality, and the cosmos. Life creates the universe rather than the other way around.
It sounds wacky, but you have to look at Robert. It's a little more complicated than it looks. Look up Robert Lanza. He's not a quack. The guy is the top. Well, he's a guy that was all controversial because of his stem cell research. He's really famous.
But this is different. The point I'm trying to make here is that you kind of touted this as if it was this is scientific proof. This is a research paper. This is an essay though. This is just a position essay. I mean, this is me quoting. This is the same as if I quoted Kenneth Miller's critique of Michael Behe's proof that intelligent design is wrong. Both were published in Nature.
Sam, you know what the weirdest thing is? Right here on the wiki article about biocentrism, they mentioned the works of biocentrism argues that the primacy of consciousness features in the work of Descartes, Kant, Leibniz, Berkeley, Schopenhauer, Bergson, people that you've been mentioning this whole time.
Well, here, I mean, look at the way that he ends this essay. It's the universe is immaterial, mental, and spiritual. Live and enjoy.
Yeah, it's an essay.
Don't pull the bait and switch where
Sam, you know what the politics of academia are, right?
That's not even an academic paper.
That's not an academic paper.
No, what I'm saying, do you know what the politics of academia are? What it means?
Oh God, is this the conspiratory theory?
I mean, conspiracy theory. It's called groupthink. Okay, you know what groupthink is? It applies to every.
Here, Strife. This link here
works in academia.
Is the source where they got that quote from. About
obviously, if someone publishes a paper saying that yes, panentheism is true, Wigner tried to point this out. Max Planck pointed this out.
And someone else will come along saying you're full of crap, and
yes, I know that.
Well, if pantheism is true, then atheism is true because
panentheism.
Oh.
Here we go.
Oh, you mean pantheism, except it decided to say, well, God is the universe and everything beyond it.
Well,
I would say, I would say everything beyond it is the universe, because you already defined God as the universe, so...
There you go. When you get a chance, now there's some other crazy crap in here, but this was on Through the Wormhole. Mashio Kaku was arguing the same thing, so...
I mean, I'd like to actually see, you can
see a video of it. I got a video of it. It's on a friend's Facebook.
Well, no, I'm interested in what the critique is and what the rest of the community thinks of this. Because, I mean, as far as what you...
a physicist at Brookhaven who, of course, disagreed.
Well, who cares what a physicist in Brookhaven says? Let's see what the whole community of Brookhaven physicists
says. I'm giving you an example.
I'm sorry, I'm having a tough time taking you seriously when you say when I'm in academia... There is nothing better than breaking the mold from supposed groupthink. That's how you get
unless it's yeah, but there are cases
that's the biggest lump of horse shit I've ever heard.
It's subconscious. It happens in every community. You have to accept that, right? I mean, okay, for example, you could...
What are we talking about now?
Most pluralistic discipline. Because you don't make money off of agreeing with people.
All right, let me give you someone who's very famous who got the Templeton Prize for this.
Oh, a Christian apologetic?
No, not a Christian apologist. A world-famous quantum physicist named Bernard.
No. The Templeton Prize is an apologetics prize.
I know, but the people who...
Do you ever quote people who are non-biased on this issue?
The people who win the prize are not necessarily.
But it's an apologetic. I mean, it's an apologetics prize.
Okay, forget the prize. Look at who he's arguing.
But he's obviously biased.
Because of his inclusion?
No. The reason you get that prize is because you're searching it out. I mean...
No scientist in their right mind would go out searching for God. I don't think.
Don't think. See, that's the politics of academia. What if they are biased and they happen to find evidence anyway?
You can't find evidence of God because the supernatural cannot be examined.
You're assuming dualism.
No, I'm not. I'm assuming naturalism.
No, naturalism is once again not materialism.
Yes, it is. It's a subset of it. It's part of it, technically.
No, materialism is the belief that everything that exists is material in nature. Naturalism is the belief that everything that exists is natural and can be studied with science.
Yes.
Let's begin into situations like the holographic universe or non-local variables.
Hey, according to this guy who got the Hugh Hefner Award, that's very valid. Seriously.
See, you guys just demonstrated politics of academia right here. You're saying that...
Exactly. I'm making the point. Okay. The point here is, the reason why we are very particular on certain awards is because there's criteria involved to get the reward. If the criteria is not relevant to the topic, we don't care that they got the Hugh Hefner Award or the Templeton or whatever that was.
Here, I'll quote Lawrence Krauss. He stated, "It may represent interesting philosophy, but it doesn't look at first glance as if it would change anything about science."
Was that in the article I sent you with the...
No, that's about biocentrism.
Yeah, it wouldn't change the science.
It's complete crap then.
No, because actually it explains the science more parsimoniously.
No, it doesn't, because it just says it wouldn't change anything.
Yeah, but parsimony is not always the correct...
But it sounds like biocentrism's main purpose is to try to promote biology and the study of it. And try to make it our number one focus. I don't know, that's just what it sounds like.
In terms of the physics, it's vastly more parsimonious. So yes, maybe parsimony is not always the best criterion, but when you look at quantum gravity research, digital physics, and I said even if we take the holographic universe out of it, I can give you 6 separate arguments for why immaterialism is true from physics, and then additional arguments that are indirect.
But what is immaterial? The question is, what the fuck is immaterial?
Everything that exists is made of information rather than matter.
What we define...
Wait.
Thank you.
What is...
Yes.
Have you ever... I mean, again, this is one of the... I have to jump on it here. What are you defining information as? Because if you use Shannon's definition, information can't constitute anything. It's an abstract. It's an abstraction of an ordering. Anything can be information.
Information is just energy flow.
No, information... No. God damn it. This is why people need to read Claude Shannon's work on this. Information is just the ordering... It's just taking a mathematical abstract of something that is non-random. Since the universe seems to behave in a non-random matter, anything can be information. And that's why you're able to use it in my field. You're able to use it in DNA analysis.
Let me give you perhaps a more clarifying example then. This guy is a computer scientist. He plays around with physics, and I've seen some physicists use his work as well. He models the world as a virtual reality, and he explains the physics much better than you can if you assume materialism. Much more parsimoniously, I should say.
I mean, but this is ArtCiv, so it's not peer review, obviously. I'd have to look at it.
Just read the thing over. I have a popular science account version of him on my YouTube channel.
I'm curious about this, Raatz. Well, let's just begin concluding, because this has been going on for about an hour and a half.
Sam, by the way, thank you. I appreciate that definition. I actually like that a lot better than what I understood it as, so cool.
Where do you, science uses information as the description of objects. We can quantify things into information. It's not information itself, we just say it is. Like we quantify matter, like we say it's information when we make it empirical.
So you're saying materialism is information is just the description itself, right? So it's not the thing. Okay. One second here.
Materialism only cares about what actually is there.
Well, materialism doesn't
we
say
can prove.
It assumes there's something behind what you see.
No, you assume there's something you can't experience.
The distinction, this is Anton
I at least
Zellinger.
Experience it,
Anton Zellinger. The distinction between reality and our knowledge of reality, between reality and information, cannot be made. There is no way to refer to reality without using the information we have about it.
What?
Yeah, the stuff I experience.
That's it. It stops at experience. There's nothing past experience.
Yes, that's materialism.
No, it's not materialism.
Induction. And how do you process your inductive senses?
Not matter.
Your mind.
What relevance does this have on reality?
Because it inverts the entire atheist theist debate.
No, it doesn't. What? It doesn't do anything.
No, it doesn't do anything.
It just shows that you're masturbating.
I gave you physics. I gave you tons of physics. I gave you philosophy. You thought that was bad, so I gave you physics instead.
You didn't give me physics. You gave opinion essays from several people.
And then I added in a whole bunch of papers.
Oh man.
Yeah, those
and peer-reviewed stuff. And some of them are peer-reviewed.
Those were all opinion pieces. What?
No. Except for the ones.
Jesus, where do you go to school? How does this pass for fucking scholarship in anything?
Okay, guys.
Wait, what college did you go to? Did you go to college?
What? I gotta start my dissertation, guys. I think I might be able to get a PhD without him,
Yeah, if you wrote "Hello, Ken Hovind," maybe that.
I just gave you.
Fuck, I need a PhD in theology. It sounds really easy.
Zellinger is obviously not Kent Hovind, and he's coming to the same conclusion.
So what if he's coming to the same conclusion? They could be the same ideology.
Okay, he's the top of his field. Kent Hovind is a quack, you'd consider, right? Anton Zellinger is not a quack.
But he's commenting on an issue he's not necessarily qualified to address. I mean, all of these essays are...
He's especially qualified to address it.
Well, no.
Pee Wee Herman gave a commercial saying not to do drugs. Now,
he's qualified to talk about drugs.
Should I take Pee Wee Herman's view and say, hey, that guy's qualified to tell me not to do drugs?
You're just... I mean, I'm sorry. You can't call it... You can't call this... I mean, you can't call these papers. These are essays. They're not...
I gave you some essays, yes, and I pointed out...
No, those were all essays. I looked through all of them. They're all the same.
Did you see the popular science physics world new scientist?
Okay, I'm going to show you guys a hilarious video.
I mean, the actual paper, the actual source that you gave us...
The one, yes. Okay, that was an opinion piece, yes. The point is...
And the ArtCiv one was the two nature... They were all opinion
yes, those were opinion pieces.
And I'm not personally qualified to address stuff in physics. And, I mean, it would be more honest of you if you actually showed what the critics say as well. And then I'll gain a...
All right.
How about this, Raatz? How about this? Next week... bring all the critiques of it and bring them and tell us what they are next time.
All right. No,
okay, now let's just go with final comments.
This is crack. No, just watch that video and you understand what I'm talking about.
So Sam, you have any final comments?
I would say that this sort of proves why philosophy departments are going bankrupt everywhere. I have nothing else to comment other than it's very easy to get caught up in these arguments, but you actually have to connect them back to reality rather than just being hypothetical exercises in the process of logic.
Also, Sam, you want to promote your channel?
Yeah, YouTube, it's RothyTime.
Do you spell that?
Yeah, I'll put a link in the video when I...
And,
can you spell it, Strife?
No.
Can you, Sam, put it down on the bottom so Strife has something to use? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What about you, Tom?
Well, I remain completely unconvinced. I'm sorry, but Raatz, there was just nothing there for me. It's just an empty page for me.
All right.
I became a Calvinist, guys. So whenever someone says why I don't believe in God, I tell them it's because God made me that way.
I was just playing.
I like that. I know some Calvinists that would irritate.
Okay, you, Raatz?
The universe is stranger than you can imagine. I think I'll put it up to that. And it's not just philosophy saying it. That's
it sounds like philosophy mumbo jumbo.
Sounds
you can accept that the universe is stranger than you can imagine.
Well, I mean, I don't know what the universe is exactly. I know we live in it, but I don't know exactly what it is 100%.
Since it's stranger than you can imagine.
Well, no shit. So is life.
Yeah, guys, don't fear the unknown. Be excited about it. That's my final statement.
Kudos.
Yeah, and this is the after show, and we'll have one next week. And Line Go Show shall be on Vlog Live. There will be a link in the description for the new channel on Vlog Live. And signing off.
Thanks, man.